Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is speaking about Cyclone Tote. We have about three articles. We will gel up together and take it as one single point. When we speak about Cyclone Tote, this was formed in the Arabian Sea. So the first important factor that we have to understand is in reference to the naming convention, which was the country which gave this particular name to the cyclone called as Tote. And the country that has given this particular name happens to be Myanmar. So kindly remember, Myanmar is the country which has given this particular cyclone a name called as Tote. When we look into the naming convention, cyclone names are usually given by the country on the basis of rotational basis. What is this rotational basis? We have all these countries in the region. We have Bangladesh, India, Iran, Maldives, Myanmar, Oman, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, UAE and Yemen. They are currently arranged on the basis of alphabetical order. So what we also have is list 1, 2, so on and so forth. So what we will have is first Nisarga, which should be the name given to a particular cyclone that strikes in this particular region. After Nisarga, it will be Gati. After Gati, it will be Nivar. So what do we have is a naming convention given by the countries and it will go according to the list and according to the alphabetical order. So once list 1 is completely exhausted, what we will have is list 2 names which will be taken up, and after list 2 is completely exhausted, what we will have is the list 3 names that will be taken up. So the first key parameter that we have to know is the naming convention, and in the present situation, Cyclone Tote is a name given by Myanmar. What does this Tote stand for? When we look into the meaning as taken from Burmese language, it stands for gecko. So what is it? It is nothing but a type of lizard which we see in that particular region. So kindly remember, it is taken from Burmese language and it stands for gecko. Another important classification that we also have to understand is the speed as well as the cyclonic storm convention. What do we mean by speed? There is a classification that we have to know on the basis of which we have the naming convention for that particular cyclone. What is that? That cyclone will be called as low pressure if it has a wind speed of less than 31 kilometers per hour. It will be called as depression if the wind speed of that particular cyclone is in the range of 31 to 49 kilometers per hour. It will be called as deep depression if the wind speed is between the range of 49 to 61 kilometers per hour. It will be called as cyclonic storm if it is in the range of 61 to 88 kilometers per hour. It will be called as severe cyclonic storm if it is in the range of 88 to 170 kilometers per hour. It will be called as very severe cyclonic storm if the wind speed is in the range of 118 to 166 kilometers per hour. We have extremely severe cyclonic storm if the wind speeds are between 166 to 221 kilometers per hour, and it will be called as a super cyclone if the wind speed is much beyond 221 kilometers per hour. As of now, when we look into this cyclonic storm Tote, it is in the severe cyclonic storm where the wind speed is in the range of 88 to 170 kilometers per hour, but it is being predicted that it may get exaggerated or increased as a very severe cyclonic storm. It also becomes important for us to understand the category of the cyclone. What is this category? There are 5 types of category. We have one where the wind speed is about 120 to 150. Category 2 where the wind speed is between 150 to 180. Category 3 where the wind speed is between 180 to 210 kilometers per hour. Category 4 where it is in the range of 210 to 250 kilometers per hour. And finally, we have category 5 cyclone where the wind speed is much beyond 250 and above. When we consider the damage that can be inflicted by this cyclone, if it is a category 1 cyclone, the damages will be comparatively minimal. If the damages is comparatively moderate, it will be a category 2 cyclone. If it is extensive damage, it will be category 3. If it is extreme damage, it will be category 4. And if it is resulting in catastrophic damage, this will result in category 5 cyclone. Why are we discussing discussing this as of now. When we look into the article, we have the states of Kerala, the territory of Lakshadweep Islands, and some of the guard districts of Tamil Nadu, which has seen significant rain in the past few days. Apart from this, we also have the states of Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat, which is also seeing considerable rain as well. Because of this, what we have actually witnessed is some consequences impact in this region. What are the consequences? One, people have lost their lives. If we take the state of Kerala, as per the article, we have about 2 people who have passed away, and many people have also faced economic issues as well. Added to this, what we have seen is destruction of the plantations. Thatched house have also been destroyed as well. Roads and other economic infrastructure have been destroyed as well. So what we actually see is that there is loss of lives, and this has also resulted in economic losses. These are some of the impacts because of it. And as a result of this cyclonic storm, there has been a recommendation given by the state government as well as by the central government, where fishermen have been warned to stay off the sea during this particular issue. Now what we have to focus is another important criteria when it comes to the cyclones, called as the pre-monsoon cyclones. What are these pre-monsoon cyclones? This is one such example that we currently have. When do we have the monsoon? Usually it is in the month of June and after that. So usually monsoon starts in India from the month of June and it takes over until September. But before the monsoon strikes India, we have what is called as the pre-monsoon cyclones. When does this pre-monsoon cyclone occur? Basically, when we look into the pre-monsoon cycles, it usually occurs from the month of March, usually after 15th of March, and it may stay up until May as well. So when do we have the months? It usually is March, April as well as May. So the pre-monsoon cyclones happens usually during this particular period. How does this occur? When it comes to the cyclones, tropical cyclones usually draw all their energy from the warm waters. So because there is warm water that is present in this particular area, one in the Arabian Sea belt, the other in the Bay of Bengal belt, because the temperature is around 28 degrees centigrade, this gives the right combination for the formation of the cyclone. So basically, the sea surface temperature is the primary trigger for a cyclone formation. So kindly remember, it is the sea surface temperature which helps in the formation of the pre-monsoon cyclones. Now what we have to understand is a comparison between Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. When we look into Bay of Bengal region, it has considerably higher temperature. It has higher temperature and it is much warmer as well. So we usually witness more cyclones in this particular region. But when we look into the Arabian Sea, it has a temperature which is 1 or 2 degree lesser than the Bay of Bengal. As a result, the amount of cyclones or the number of cyclones that happens in the Arabian Sea is comparatively lesser as compared to the Bay of Bengal. So generally, when you compare Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, more cyclones are witnessed in Bay of Bengal region and less number of cyclones are witnessed in the Arabian Sea region. That is primarily because of drop of temperature in comparison to Bay of Bengal. So when we consider cyclone Tote, this happens to have generated in the Arabian Sea, and this particular cyclone is happening for the fourth consecutive year where Arabian Sea has been witnessing these cyclones. And from the past 3 years, what we are also witnessing is that these three cyclones in the past have come very close to the western coast of India. Because they have come very close to the western coast of India, if it hits, it will have considerable damage to the people as well as to the economy. So in the past 4 years, what we are witnessing is the increase of cyclonic activities in Arabian Sea, and in the past 3 years, what we are witnessing is that these cyclones have moved considerably close by to the western coast of India. So why is this happening? That is because few scientists say this is because of the climate change impact. Because of climate change, there is warming that is taking place. Because of warming, there is heating of this Arabian Sea. Because there is considerable increase of the temperature, as we initially discussed, what we have is increase of the sea surface temperature, which is leading to increase of the cyclonic activities in this particular region. Now, if we have to consider the examples from the past, in the year 2019, we have cyclone Vayu, which moved parallel to the western coast and made landfall on the coast of Gujarat. In 2020, we had cyclone Nisarga, which was the first cyclone in recorded history that hit the Maharashtra coast in the month of June. And now what we have is this particular cyclone called as Cyclone Tote. In order to overcome all these issues that may come up because of this cyclone, there have been some measures taken by the government of India as well as by the respective governments. What are these steps? One, we have the Indian Air Force, which has kept about 16 transport aircraft and 18 helicopters on operational readiness in case of any eventuality or distress. All these aircrafts will be employed immediately. We also have the Navy, which has put all the ships, aircrafts and helicopters on standby in coordination with the district administration. Finally, the district administration has also made sure that all those people along the border areas where along the coastline are shifted to the relief camps so that they can save their lives. These are some of the steps taken by the government in order to bring down the economic losses as well as the loss of lives. For you to understand and give a clear picture of what the cyclones are, what are the conditions that needs to be matched and other important criteria, we've already recorded a video on cyclone. The link will be given in the description box, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next article. This article says the hurdles in accessing foreign COVID-19 aid. When COVID-19 hit us all in 2020, we were not prepared for this pandemic. So what did the government do? The government enforced the lockdown. There were two objectives of the lockdown. One was to strengthen the healthcare system so that in case of any eventuality distress conditions, the health conditions was not that good. So what we had to boost was the health infrastructure. This was why the government enforced lockdown. The other reason also was to slow down the impact of the spread and transmission of the COVID-19. And after COVID-19 one, what we are currently witnessing is the second wave of COVID-19. In the second wave of COVID-19, the government was taken by surprise because of sudden spike of the cases, and as a result, what we are witnessing is loss of lives due to multiple reasons. What are these multiple reasons? One, the government was not able to provide required number of medicines for the people. Some of the important medicines like the Remdesivir was not in stock. Then oxygen that was supposed to be supplied to all these hospitals, the oxygen was missing as well, and there were other issues that was reflecting when it comes to the operations of the government. In order to overcome this particular issue, what we required was the foreign support. Yes, to meet this particular demand, to meet the crisis that was happening in India, the foreign companies as well as countries did accept India's aid request as well. But in spite of this aid request, there are certain issues that are plaguing the system. Is what is this article all about? First up, let's understand what were the measures taken by the government of India in order to reduce or in order to ensure that there is free flow of equipment as well as vaccines. Basically, we have the government of India which immediately ensured that basic custom duties on import of COVID-19 vaccines was completely removed. What we have usually when we are importing any of the equipments, medicines or vaccines, the government imposes what is called as the custom duty. But because we were facing issues in India, what the government has done, it has removed the basic customs duty on the import of COVID-19 vaccines. The government also ensured that basic custom duties as well as health cess on the imports of medical grade oxygen and other equipment that is required for servicing of the COVID-19 patients, such custom duties was completely removed. Followed by this, even prior to this, custom duties on Remdesivir was completely removed, and when we come to the government support, it also ensured that all the import duties on the diagnostic kits were also removed by the government as well. And in order to make sure that oxygen concentrator import are not hindered, this once again the customs duties were removed, and these oxygen concentrators was meant to be used only for the personal use. In case there is an individual who is importing an oxygen concentrator and that happens to be for personal use, again custom duties were eliminated or removed by the government of India. In spite of all these steps that are taken by the government of India, one of the major hurdles that we are currently witnessing is that the government has imposed the goods and the services tax. Ideally, if the government is taking away the custom duty, it also should have ensured that it removed the goods and the services tax. But in the present situation, what we are actually witnessing is that when it comes to the oxygen concentrators, about 12% of GST is imposed by the government. When it comes to the vaccines, about 5% of the GST is imposed by the government. So the first major hurdle the article says is the GST imposed by the government, which is not letting efficient use of the foreign aid, or in fact if it is done on a suo motu basis by individual, even there it is the GST which is creating a barrier for the efficient use, says the author. Apart from this, the second major concern as discussed by the author is in reference to the clearances. What are these clearances? We are importing vaccines, equipment and other oxygen concentrators from different countries. This comes to the port as well, and once it comes to the port, what we require is clearances that has to be given by the custom officers. But in certain cases, in few cases, because GST is not paid, the clearances are not being given by the custom officers. So ideally it has to come up and it has to be processed fast, it has to be pushed expeditiously, so that the oxygen concentrators or any other equipment will have to be used by the COVID-19 patients. But because they have not paid the GST, it has still led to lack of clearances in the ports as well as by the custom officers. This happens to be the second concern. The third concern or the major hurdle for the full execution of the foreign aid happens to be the regulations as present under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. We have changes that the government of India has introduced in the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act in 2020 in the month of September. According to these rules, let's say there is a NGO, a non-governmental organization. If it has to start operations, it has to open its account where in one of the branches in SBI, which is in Delhi, which happens to be the Parliament branch. But if there are NGOs who are not able to operate in certain conditions, they would not be let to conduct their operations. So the first major problem in this particular case is that the NGOs will have to open a bank account for receiving all their foreign funds, but in the present situation many have struggled to do so, and unfortunately only 16% of the NGOs have managed to open the account, but the rest of them have not managed to open the account, which is the major cause of concern. So opening of the account is not happening, which is why they are not able to receive the funds, which is why they are not able to work during this particular crisis of pandemic. Added to this, when you consider an NGO, every NGO has an objective. Every NGO works in a specified area or in a specified sector. Let's say it is working in the education sector, it might be working in the health sector, or it might be working for the children as well, or they might be working for the women issues as well. That is their core objective. But during the last amendment that was made, in case there is an NGO which is investing in any other sector apart from their core sector, such was restricted, says the article. So during the present situation, if they have received money for a specified objective, there might be issues as they would not be able to divert the funds for other health related issues, is the second major concern. The third major concern with respect to FCRA is about transfer of funds. What do we mean by it? Let's say there is one of the NGO which is registered as ABC. This registered NGO will be getting the funds from the foreign units or from the foreign entities. This NGO ABC cannot give or transfer the funds to another NGO, let's say DF or it cannot transfer to another individual who is not part of this organization. So basically, if the funds is given to this NGO, only that NGO and its individuals should be able to work in a particular area, but it cannot transfer the funds to a second NGO to another individual who is not part of this organization. And as a result, in the present situation, because an NGO has received funds, it would not be able to transfer the same to another individual who is actually working on the ground level when it comes to the pandemic. That is the major concern once again with respect to the FCRA. What is the way forward? What are the measures that have to be taken by the government of India? We have NASSCOM, which has requested the Prime Minister to relax some of the rules as given under the FCRA. As of now, there are countries which wants to help India. There are global firms which wants to help India as well. If we can relax the FCRA rules up until the pandemic is over, this will help India as well as its people is the first recommendation. Followed by this, we have the recommendation given by the Delhi High Court, which has also requested the government to completely eliminate the GST on the vaccine as well as on the oxygen concentrators, so that during this particular crisis, people need not have to pay extra money, because Article 21 is important. Article 21 is about right to life. So during this particular period, GST should be removed on all these right-saving drugs as well as oxygen concentrators and vaccines, says the Delhi High Court. These are some of the important recommendations which can be followed by the government of India. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about mucormycosis. Mucormycosis happens to be a fungal disease. When we speak about the fungal disease, most of the plants usually are infected by these fungal diseases, but animals and even human beings are not infected by the fungal disease. Why? That is because they have an evolved intricate immune system, which in the present situation is able to fight all the immune related issues or infection related issues when it comes to the fungal infection. However, there can be a situation where if the immune response of the body is not good, or a person is already suffering from certain illness, in such a scenario, fungal infection can also breach the walls of the human beings as well. One such situation that we are witnessing is in the present situation called as the mucormycosis. So in India, as of now, all those patients who have recovered from COVID-19 are facing one of the fungal infections, and that is also called as black fungus infection, and that is called as the mucormycosis. So what is this mucormycosis? Basically, this is an aggressive and invasive fungal infection which is caused by a group of molds called as mucormycetes. It can affect various organs, but it is currently manifesting invasive rhino-orbital disease crawling through the sinus, working its way to the brain, affecting the ear, nose, throat as well as mouth. So this particular disease as of now looks like it is not contagious. So it will not be transmitted from one person to another. But even if it is not contagious, it has caused considerable damage to number of people in India. What are the major concerns? This particular infection has affected the sinus, the brain region, the lung region, and it has also exaggerated in all those people who are suffering from diabetes or they have a immunocompromised individuals. So what has it caused? It has led to death, it has led to brain disorders, it has caused blindness, it has also caused stroke as well as ultimately death as well. Now the question is, what causes this particular disease? When you look into the present situation, when you look at the COVID-19 patients, most of the COVID-19 patients are administered the steroids. Why are steroids administered? So that inflammation in the lung is comparatively reduced, and at the same time body has what is called as too much of immune response to these pathogens. In order to reduce this too much of immune response, which is why steroids are being administered to the patients. As these steroids are being administered, what we are currently witnessing is increase in the sugar levels. One, there might be people who are already suffering from diabetes, and there might be people when given more of steroids, they would have developed more sugar levels. Because of increase in the sugar levels, what we actually see is that the immune response of the body is not that good, and as a result, this infection is increasing in all those patients who have overcome the issue of COVID-19, but they are now infected with this particular fungus, resulting in what is called as mucormycosis. So basically, administration of the steroid to the COVID-19 patients has resulted in spike of the sugar levels, which has led to them not having immune response to these type of fungal infections. What are the basic symptoms of this particular disease? When we look into the symptoms, this can be categorized into different forms. One is in the nose area. What exactly happens? There is excessive fungal activity that is taking place. There is stuffy and bleeding nose when it comes to the nose. Then what we have to focus is in reference to the eyes. There is redness of the eyes. There is swelling and pain in the eye as well. There is drooping of the eyelids or the eyelid swelling as well. This may also result in double vision as well, and as a result, the eye region is another focused area when it comes to the fungal region. Apart from this, there is blackish discoloration of the skin, swelling or numbness around the cheek, one-sided facial pain, toothache or jaw pain that patients would be witnessing. All these are the major symptoms of mucormycosis. So what is the treatment that we currently have? The main line of treatment that we have to currently look at is the antifungal drug, that is amphotericin B, which is given for an extended period of time under the strict observation of the physician. And if this does not work, surgery may have to be taken up by the doctors as well. So the final question is, how can mucormycosis be prevented? As we have discussed, it is all about steroids. So steroid administration, only if it is necessary, will have to be given to the patients, and at the same time we have to ensure that there is less usage of the steroids when it comes to the COVID-19 patients. Minimal use, and if it is not required, they need not be administered, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says new approach combines biologics, anti-drug conjugates. Before we understand what this article is all about, let's understand the meaning of biologics and antibody drug conjugates. What is a biologic? Biologic is a product. Product of what? It is a drug. How is it extracted? It is extracted from a living organism or certain components of a living organism, or the product can be derived from the human beings, or it can be derived from the animals, or it can be derived from the microorganisms. So basically, when we speak about biologics, these are nothing but drugs or some of the medicines which are extracted from microorganisms, humans or animals, using biotechnology in place. Some of the examples of biologics can be vaccines. So one of the examples of biologics can be vaccines. We can also have genes, tissues and recombinant proteins which can also be developed under laboratory conditions, which can be an example of biologics. The next word that we have to understand is the antibody drug conjugates. As the very name denotes, it's a conjugate, which means it is a combination of one or more compounds. So in the present situation, what we have is an antibody and a drug. What are these? These are the biopharmaceutical drugs. What are they designed for? They are designed to target a specific therapy for treating of cancers. Generally, if there is a person who is suffering from cancer, what we actually ask that individual to go through is called as chemotherapy. But when an individual is going through chemotherapy, there might be other healthy cells in and around. This might also be get distracted, or there might be killing of the healthy cells as well. In order to overcome this particular issue, what we are making use is of a biopharmaceutical drug, where it is a combination of antibody and a drug. This antibody will be used to target a specific area, so the healthy cells will not be disturbed, and we will also have what is called as the cytotoxic or the anti-cancer drug that will be administered. So these two compounds will come together and a specific area would be targeted, and a drug is also in combination with it, which will help in reducing the impact of the cancer, which is what we mean by antibody drug conjugate. So in the present context, we have researchers from the University of Massachusetts who have used both these technologies of biologics and antibody drug conjugates, where they are planning to prepare one of the product called as the protein antibody conjugates. This protein antibody conjugates is nothing but a combination of both of these two antibodies as well as the protein. Ultimately, this would help in reducing the impact of pancreatic cancer. So what is the significance here? As of now, we have had some incurable diseases, but going forward, these applications can be used and it may also reduce the impact of pancreatic cancer or other diseases that we have been witnessing in the past few decades. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about one of the reptiles called as Subdoluceps nilgiriensis. So kindly remember, Subdoluceps nilgiriensis happens to be a reptile. Where was it seen? It was seen in Anaikatti Hills. Where is this Anaikatti Hills? It is in the state of Tamil Nadu in Coimbatore. Kindly remember, this can be important from your preliminary examination. These skinks are non-venomous in nature. Snakes are generally venomous, but when it comes to skinks, they are non-venomous and non-poisonous. What are the various threats to these skink species? One is the seasonal forest fire. Two is housing construction and brick kill in the industries in those areas. Three, rapid urbanization and increase of the road networks. All these are the possible threats to this skink species. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Has climate change led to cyclones becoming fiercer and frequent? Examine. Next question. With foreign aid pouring in for India, discuss the hurdles in accessing foreign COVID-19 aid. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Please do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.